There's a kind of silence that isn't peaceful. It's the kind that arrives after betrayal, after a loss, and wraps itself around your chest like it wants to keep you from breathing. I was staring at a casket when a whisper came like a snake. Behind my shoulder, you have a week to get out. At first, I thought I misunderstood. I didn't turn to see her face. I just sat there, frozen, like my spine had fused with a wooden pew. My fingers crushed the edge of the funeral program I'd been holding all morning. My son was gone. My son who built this life with me, who held my hand when I signed that deed, who promised this home would never stop being mine. Aaron was 33. A heart attack out of nowhere. No warnings. No time, no goodbyes. He collapsed right there in the den where we used to decorate the tree together during Christmases I thought would last forever. And now, while the priest talked about acceptance and eternal peace, Madison, his wife of 5 short years, sat beside me in her designer black dress, squeezing my shoulder like she cared. That's when she said it. So soft, so chilling. "Do you have a week to get out?" She stood and walked off to hug a new arrival before her crocodile tears had even fully dried. Someone whispered behind me, "She's being so strong. I can't." Imagine losing my husband at that age. It almost made me laugh, except my chest was burning too badly to allow it. I stayed quiet through the service, through the eulogies, through the final prayer. When others moved toward the reception hall, I remained seated for a few seconds longer. I didn't cry, couldn't afford to cry, not yet. Madison offered her arm to her aging grandmother, but conveniently left me behind, alone, as everyone exited. I ended up riding in Aaron's car, the smell of his cologne still fresh on the seatbelt. But Madison didn't say a word, not a single word. When we got to the house, our house, it didn't feel like home anymore. After welcoming everyone with a speech Aaron himself would have mocked for its dramatic flair, Madison poured wine, passed out K-naps, and circulated the rooms as if she were hosting a garden club soiree. But I noticed everything she didn't say. The family photo near the stairs, gone. His commemorative army case, removed. His high school trophies, erased. As if Aaron had never existed in this house. After the last guest left and the emptiness returned, I walked into my room, my safe corner of the last 7 years to find the door open, my nightstand lamp unplugged, and half of my things gone. Drawers emptied, jewelry box missing. Closet bins labeled with Sharpie. Mom stuff. My name was Ellen, and I hadn't been called Mom by Madison a single time. I confronted her in the kitchen. She was sipping Merlot like it was apple juice. Casual, controlled. "Did you move my things?" I asked quietly. She didn't look surprised, just organizing. "There's a moving company I can contact if you'd like." She smiled like she was offering a helpful recipe, not eviction. She claimed my jewelry had been secured in the safe, assumed I'd want privacy, with so many guests passing through, and insisted that she and Aaron had talked about this. "It's not personal," she said. "But this is my home," I told her. She gave one indifferent shrug. It was his home. He would have wanted space for us to grieve. She turned back to her phone like I didn't exist, like my name hadn't been etched on the deed next to his 7 years ago. That night, I didn't sleep. I checked the closet, the boxers, the drawers. The lockbox I'd kept beneath the bed was gone. But what scared me most? The folder where I stored every important document. Our bank receipts. My passport. But the deed, the property deed we both signed, was missing. Like it had never existed. The next morning, the kitchen was pristine, cold, soulless. Madison was at the table, typing on her laptop with her signature ice-lot smile. She cocked her head up. "Morning," checking quotes for movers. "My Tupperware's gone." I noted she didn't even blink. Thought it'd help tidy things. In the living room, Aaron's favorite armchair, gone. Replaced with a new one that looked like it belonged in a staged real estate listing. "Where's Aaron's chair?" I asked. It didn't match the aesthetic anymore. She replied, sipping her drink. "I'm not going to sit in a dead man's chair, Ellen. That was it." That was the first time his name came out her mouth with ice in it instead of tears. And I knew what I had to do. Aaron had once given me the name of a lawyer. Holt, solid guy. He said when we reworked our wills. So I called him, told him everything I could in 20 minutes, my missing belongings, the altered house, the absence of the deed. Did you contribute financially to the purchase of the home? He asked. Yes, I told him with the cashiers. Check. I still have the receipt. His voice perked. Then we may have a case. I drove home with my heart in my throat and a fire in my bones. I didn't tell Madison I'd gone. I didn't stop to breathe until I climbed into that attic and searched through every box Aaron had ever stashed there. Found it? Eventually, inside. A thin manila envelope marked Final Deed. My name sat in ink beside his notarized, legitimate, dated. Not a copy. The real thing? She didn't know I found it tore. Maybe she hoped I never would. But now, I wasn't guessing anymore. I wasn't grieving blindly now. So I had something real. Before we move on to the next part, if this story has already struck something in your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this journey. Every share brings power to another voice that refuses to be erased, like you. You don't really realize your strength until silence becomes your ally. When you learn that stillness can protect secrets better than walls ever will, that attic discovery, that single manila envelope with the deed shifted the entire ground beneath my feet. I stopped crying. I stopped shaking. I started documenting. Back downstairs, Madison was lounging at the dining table, swirling red wine in a glass like she was in a commercial. She didn't even glance up when I walked past. But I noticed how calculated her calm was. Too perfect. She had no idea I'd found the deed. Not yet. I scanned it that night, emailed it to myself, made copies and stored them in every safe place I could think of. A fireproof box in my closet. A folder titled for lawyer only. I wasn't taking chances. Not when she was already rearranging furniture like I didn't exist. At around 9 p.m., Madison appeared, holding 2 glasses of wine. I paused. I figured we should talk, she said. Clear the air. She sat across from me on the couch, too close to where Aaron's recliner used to be. I took the glass, but didn't drink. She smiled in that soft, saccharine way people do when they're about to lie through their teeth. Aaron always said the house was for us, for our future family, she began. I said nothing. I don't want it to get ugly, she added, looking down at her wine glass. I just want to move forward. Have you spoken to a lawyer? I asked. That startled her. No, I didn't think it was necessary. Maybe it is, I said gently. I watched her eyes narrow. Are you threatening me, Ellen? Smiled. Just thinking out loud. She stood slowly. I hope we can do this the easy way. So do I replied. She left the room and I waited 5 full minutes before checking the scanned deed again. My name, clear, permanent, untouched. She thought she had boxed me in. But she had no idea what was coming. The very next morning, I walked into the garage and found her tossing Aaron's old fishing gear into the donation pile. Just like the chair. Just like the framed medals that vanished. Hope that's okay, she said. I nodded, walked inside, and went straight to my bedroom. That's when I discovered the nightstand drawer was locked, when it had never been locked before. I pried it open with a screwdriver. My prescription bottle, gone. My small savings envelope, missing. Another warning. A way to tell me, I see you. Control this, but it only made me more certain. I went back to Aaron's home office and opened the 3rd drawer of his old filing cabinet. Inside, a folder labeled Refinance Options, dated less than a year ago. Both our names, mine and Aaron's. No mention of Madison. I took photographs, uploaded them to the cloud. Later that day, as I passed the hallway, I heard her on a call. She's still here, she was saying. No, her name's not on the current utilities or bills. Don't worry, she won't fight back. It's handled. I made just enough noise to let her know I'd heard. She looked up, startled. Everything okay? You should be careful. What you say in this house? The walls are thin. She stared at me, but didn't reply. Just picked up her mug and left the room. That evening, a new picture hung above the mantel, a generic mountain landscape. The family photo, gone. Erased. Aaron's books had disappeared from the shelves. His army jacket wasn't in the closet anymore. It was like she was clearing space to sell the home not to heal. That night, locked my bedroom door with the little wedge I'd kept hidden since the week before. I didn't sleep deeply. And at 2 a.m., I heard her footsteps outside. No knock, just a slow pause, then the floor creaked as she walked away. The next morning, I checked the circuit breaker. Power had gone out briefly, just long enough to reset. My alarm clock died at breakfast. She greeted me like nothing had happened, as if we'd never challenged each other, as if I'd never heard her whisper, "You have a week to get out." I declined her offer for coffee instead. I went back to Mr. Holt's office and laid out the new printed evidence, the refinance docs, the digital scans, and the missing items. His assessment was precise and calm. "She has no legal leg to stand on," he assured me. "These documents are airtight. She tries to evict you, we'll respond immediately with ownership proof and intent to defraud. Can I file something preemptively?" I asked. "Yes. We'll draft a notice of co-ownership and prepare a legal reply." I clutched my purse tightly as I left. The nerves in my chest weren't fear anymore, they were focus. Back at the house, Addison was folding laundry, humming softly. When I walked in, she looked right at me. "Did you go somewhere?" she asked. "Just needed air." "You seem confident?" All of a sudden, I remembered something important. I replied calmly. She didn't smile, but she didn't argue either. That night, while she was in the guest room on another call, I overheard something that made my stomach twist. "She's acting weird. I might need to speed things up. Pause. If she finds that file, we're screwed." She didn't know I already had the file. But now I knew she was hiding something deeper. Bigger than just a property fight. 3 nights later, she hosted what she called a grief gathering, not a prayer, not a vigil, a cocktail reception. She didn't ask me to help, only told me to keep the guest bathroom clean. I watched as she brought out Aaron's old bar cart and turned his memory into a wine mixer. Guests came and went, some neighbors, some coworkers, some knew Aaron, some clearly didn't. One man in particular stood out, mid-40s designer coat, kept watching me from across the room. I didn't flinch. When someone asked how I was doing, I answered, "As well as I can be, considering I still live here." "Oh," the woman replied. "Okay. Madison said it was her house. It's easy mistake." I smiled politely. Madison didn't like that later. She pulled me into the hallway. "Are you trying to start something?" I answered a question truthfully. "Stop being cute, Ellen. These people are here for me." "Then maybe don't erase your husband's memory and call it closure." Face flushed. "If you don't want to be here, you're free to leave." "Oh," I replied, soft but firm. "I'm not going anywhere." She leaned in close. Once again. "You think you're clever, Ellen, but you don't know how this works. I'll make sure you regret staying." I said nothing. Later that night, I found a manila folder sticking out of her tote bag. Doc copies. Backup plan, inside scanned papers, including something called e-signatures 2023, and a forged version of Aaron's will dated a full month after his death. It was planted, manipulated, and now I had undeniable proof. There's a power that comes not from shouting, but from knowing exactly what you hold in, waiting patiently while your opponent digs their own grave. The moment I saw the forged will, I didn't panic. I didn't storm into the hallway and throw accusations. I'd learned by now she wanted a reaction. She wanted me to snap, scream, throw something, so she could claim I was unstable. It's dangerous even. Instead, I took quiet photos of every page, metadata tags, forged signatures, file names like House Timeline and Madison Final Copy. One folder even held a sonogram dated for weeks after Aaron died, the same week the fake will had been signed. That was when I understood. The pregnancy was part of the plan, the final prop in her stage play. She wasn't just trying to remove me. She was building a sympathy case for court. The next morning, Addison stood at the kitchen sink in her robe, holding a tissue, staging delicate sobs. Not real cries, just soft sniffling meant to be overheard. When she turned and saw me, her eyes were watery. She placed one hand casually over her stomach. "I didn't want to say anything until I was sure," she said. "I'm pregnant, Ellen." I froze. "How far along?" asked, keeping my voice steady. 8 weeks. Maybe 9, she said quickly. Aaron had been dead for 10. She placed a printed ultrasound on the table next to me, like it was a royal decree. But the details were wrong. Her name, the clinic, the date, none of it matched her claim. "I used a donor," she added. Aaron and I discussed it. He wanted me to carry a piece of him. It was the most carefully rehearsed lie I'd ever heard in my life. I nodded. "Well, that changes things," I said softly. Her shoulders eased, her jaw unlocked. She thought I believed her. She thought I was folding. But as soon as she left the room, I pulled up the photo of the ultrasound and matched it with the document from her bag. It's 4 days apart. Both fake. Both staged. I sent them to Mr. Holt that same morning. He called me within the hour. "This helps us," he said firmly. "If she's now claiming dependency, we can demand medical records. The ultrasound date already disproves the timeline." "What if it's all fake?" I asked. "Then it's fraud," he replied. "And if you keep documenting calmly, we'll win before trial." So I did. I didn't raise my voice once. I folded towels, washed dishes. I nodded when she made comments like, "This baby's going to need so much space," or "It's hard raising a child in a hostile environment." She watched my face every time. Waiting for me to break, I in single quotes too. Then, on Friday, came out an envelope slid under my bedroom door. Typed. No court stamp. Urgent. 4/8 HOUR. Notice to vacate. Claiming emotional instability. Claiming personal threats. And one final line that made my stomach twist. Failure to vacate may result in law enforcement involvement and potential elder neglect claims. That was it. She was preparing to call the police, to spin the narrative that I was the threat. Svi, the aging, irrational intruder she couldn't help anymore. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I added the document to my growing file. Folded it neatly into the folder labeled weapons. Then I got in the car and drove straight to Mr. Holt's office without calling ahead. "This is no longer civil," he said after reading the letter. "She's making legal threats without basis. That's grounds to respond with discovery requests and fraud alerts. If she forged anything financial, she's crossed into criminal misconduct. What's the fastest way to prove it?" I asked. "We go to court, freeze the property title, flag the forged will in probate, protect the house from any unauthorized changes, and get a subpoena for her digital files. Will a judge approve that? We've got enough already. It's not just a case, it's a trap closing around her." When I got home, Madison smiled from the kitchen. "Want to go baby shopping?" "No, thank you." "Are we okay?" "We'll see." That night, I got a call from a process server. "We're delivering papers this evening. Don't engage." "I won't." At 5 p.m., she stepped onto the porch, laughing on the phone, pretending life was lining up. That's when the man approached her with the envelope and said, "You've been served. Probate, fraud, and property injunction." She stood frozen, shopping bag in hand, didn't move, didn't speak. Just opened the envelope with shaky fingers and read. And then I saw it the moment she broke. Her eyes met the window where I stood. And she saw me watching. She stormed inside, flung the envelope on the table. "You lied? What did you tell them?" I stood. I didn't tell them anything. The documents did. She shouted again, rammed her shoulder bag down, disappeared into the hallway muttering, "This isn't happening." Tea? But it was. I didn't follow. I didn't argue. I just made tea in the morning. I saw her outside pacing the yard, phone pressed to her ear. "I don't care what it costs. She's just an old woman. I want this buried." Stepped onto the porch and folded my arms. She turned, startled, and I let her know with one look that I'd heard everything. 2 days later, the court hearing was scheduled. A preliminary review of the deed, the will, and the forged materials. Madison showed up in beige and black, holding her ultrasound photo like a talisman. Her lawyer spun a gentle tale, poor widow, grieving mother-to-be, harassed by unstable in-law. But Mr. Holt dismantled it, brick by deceitful brick. Side-by-side signature comparisons. Artifact metadata showing the edits on our laptop. The original deed with my notarized co-ownership. And when he said, calmly, "Your Honor, my client has legally owned this property since its purchase," the judge didn't hesitate. "Temporary ownership freezes are lifted," she said. "Ellen retains legal co-ownership. Eviction notices are void." And then the judge looked down at the forged will. "We're launching a fraud investigation." Madison's shoulders caved. Her face crumpled, but she didn't cry. She sat there like she'd lost her script. Because she had, as we left the courtroom, Holt leaned over to me and said, "Now we wait." She either lash out or pack up. And that was fine. I could handle either. Because the law had spoken. And for once, someone else had finally told her no. Sometimes justice doesn't roar, simply reclaims what was almost stolen. The house sat in an eerie quiet after the court hearing. Madison didn't speak to me that day. She didn't make coffee, didn't prep for the baby, didn't even turn on her favorite playlist that always sounded a bit too cheerful for a grieving widow. She packed in silence, drawer by drawer, closet by closet. She moved like someone trying not to wake a ghost. Part of me expected her to lash out, to scream, to slam a door and accuse me of ruining her life. But instead, she performed her last act with surgical precision impeccably. Polite emails to the attorney, passive-aggressive sticky notes left on dishes she thought belonged to me, and even a farewell bouquet of cheap artificial flowers placed neatly on the side table in the living room. But fake kindness doesn't cover 6 months of manipulation. On the third day after the ruling, I returned home from the grocery store to find a moving truck in the driveway. 2 men were loading a beige couch I'd never liked into the back. She was leaning near the porch, directing them, wearing sunglasses even though the sky was gray. I greeted her politely, calmly. She nodded back and moved out of the way as I entered. There were half-empty boxes by the entryway, one marked "Aaron's old stuff, donate." I opened it without asking. Inside was a jacket he wore on our last vacation together. A photograph of him as a boy, half folded. Dog tags, thrown in with tangled cords and expired printer ink. I picked up the tags gently. "These aren't yours," I said softly. She didn't argue. She just turned away like she couldn't be bothered anymore at 5 p.m. that day. She walked through the kitchen one last time like a real estate agent closing a listing. "You got what you wanted." She said, "No," I replied. "I got what was mine." Her lips tightened. "Do you feel better?" Winning against a woman with nothing left? I tilted my head. "You had a choice. You tried to erase someone who loved you. And in the end, you erased yourself." She stood there, hands clenching the straps on her purse. "There'll be appeals," she whispered. "There'll be truth," I said simply. She walked out without a goodbye. The movers drove off. And with it, the storm she brought. That evening, I sat in the heart of the house, alone. Not a lonely kind of alone, but the type that finally feels whole. I looked around slowly. The quiet didn't feel heavy like before. It felt earned. I dusted off one of Aaron's old books that had been stuffed in a donation box. He never finished it. He dog-eared page 146. There was a quote underlined. "All that we do echoes, whether or not we're around to hear it." I smiled. He always liked the poetic ones. Later that week, mail came addressed to Aaron Thomas. My hand trembled just a bit. Utility update. New cable plan. I opened it, expecting a change of residence confirmation. But inside was something else. A handwritten letter, slipped between 2 printed pages, blue ink, slanted cursive. Aaron's writing. "Mom, if you're reading this." Then something happened. I didn't prepare you for. I'm sorry. I sat down. I wanted to fix things. I didn't know how far Madison would go. She started changing after we got the refinance. Denai never told her the full truth about you being on the title. She always assumed it'd be hers if anything happened. I blinked, trying to read through the tears. I started writing this the night we argued about moving you out. She said it would give us mental space. I said no. We fought hard. I told her this would always be your home because you helped build it. Financially and emotionally, she called me weak. I didn't know she'd pretend to be someone else after I was gone. And I didn't think I needed a will. That was my biggest mistake. But please know I always wanted you safe. I kept your name hidden because I thought she'd respect it, not erase it. I'm sorry. I clutched the paper as if touching his hand through time. He hadn't forgotten me. He hadn't truly left me. She'd tried to turn his silence into a weapon, but he had left behind what mattered most, the truth, in his own hand. That letter was never meant to be found by her. It had no date. It wasn't supposed to be legal. It was his last human attempt to make something right. I kept the letter inside the book he never finished, not to protect it, but to preserve the truth. Exactly where he left it. Weeks passed. I repaired what she broke in, not just physically. I replaced the family photo. I reassembled the bookshelf the movers had almost shattered. And I opened the windows, all of them. For days, let the stale air, the lies, the weight of being ghosted. In my own home dissipate. The court later confirmed the forged documents were inadmissible and referred to criminal investigators. There was talk of wire fraud, of identity tampering. I didn't follow it all closely. I had no interest in revenge. Only peace. Mr. Holt called me one morning. She offered to settle the remaining dispute quietly. We declined. You were clear. There's nothing left to settle. I thanked him. The final utility bills came with my name printed clearly across the top. The house deed re-recorded officially with updated annotations. My name, bold and static, undeniable. One morning, I stood on the patio with a cup of coffee in hand, sun hitting my face, and said aloud, "For the first time since Aaron passed, I'm home. Not half, not borrowed, not temporary. Mine. That weekend, my sister called from across the country. Heard the news? You sound strong." "I am," I said. "You staying there after everything?" "Absolutely." I smiled. This is the home I was meant to keep. And for the first time in months, I slept without locking the door. Not because I wasn't cautious, but because I finally felt safe. The silence no longer pressed against me. It wrapped me in peace. Healing doesn't come with closure. It comes with choosing to keep living. Even when the cracks are still visible. After Madison left, I thought silence would mean peace. But it did not right away. For a while, silence was an echo of Aaron's laugh in the hallway. It's a creak in the floor where he used to sneak up on me with that grin. The quiet was full of memories. Not haunting ones, just soft ones that knew they were no longer being made. Grief, I learned, is not a door you walk through. It's a tide. And even when it calms, it pulls you back sometimes without warning. Some nights, I'd pour tea into a cup and set it down across the table before realizing there'd be no one sitting on the other side. Or I'd find an old post-it on the fridge he left for me. "Don't forget to breathe today." Those were the days I didn't try to be strong. I just let myself feel. But I also started showing up in my own life again. I returned to my garden, neglected for months. The weeds had taken over like they owned the land. It's kind of like Madison tried to own my life. I trimmed, uprooted, replanted, layer by layer. Like healing. It's funny how dirt under your nails can make you feel clearer in the head. One morning, my neighbor Carol stopped by, holding a pie she'd baked just because. She had tiptoed around the situation for months, not knowing what to say. But that day, she sat on the porch with me, her voice softer than usual. "None of us really liked how she treated you." "Ellen," she said, "I thought I was imagining." I replied, "You weren't. We just didn't know how to help without making it worse. Just sitting here now, that helps. And it did. The next few weeks brought more simple recons. A friend of Aaron's from high school dropped off an old photo album he found in storage. Weird, I had this, he said. But I think he meant to give it to you. Inside were snapshots I hadn't seen in years. Aaron at 10, covered in cake. Me, in the background, looking young and exhausted but proud. One image showed us in front of this very house the day we first got the keys. He had his arm around me. This is yours now, too, he had said, now, years later. The words rang truer than ever. I made a decision that evening. I took the old guest room, what had once been hers, and transformed it walls. Painted warm yellow. Frames with photos of Aaron and me, our vacations, our holidays. A bookshelf with his favorite titles, and in the corner, an armchair that looked a lot like the one she threw out. I didn't recreate the past. I redefined the space through love, not loss. One night while I was rearranging books, a small envelope fell to the floor. Tucked in an old poetry collection, Aaron. Used to dog-ear. It was another note. Short, barely more than a sentence. You always carried us. Now, let this place carry you. No date, no signature. Just him. I sat down and wept. The way you do when something releases you from weight you'd been carrying so long. You forgot where it began, and for the first time in forever, I didn't. Feel sorry for what was lost. I felt grateful for what remained. Month passed, then 2, there were updates from Holt. Investigations proceeding. Madison had retained new counsel. Fraud charges were pending, mostly financial. He said she might serve time. I asked for no updates unless absolutely necessary. I didn't want her name in my house anymore. The real turning point came when I hosted a dinner, small one, for friends I hadn't seen since the funeral. They walked in, cautiously, like the house might still hold ghosts, but it didn't. It held light. The conversation turned from politics to memories, from old movies to Aaron. Stories. Laughter filled the corners, again the kind that doesn't have to try. Carol raised a glass midway through the meal. Her eyes glistening from the wine or nostalgia, or maybe both. To Ellen, she said. For holding a storm and still choosing. To grow, it was simple, but it stayed with me. Later that night, after everyone had gone, I stood at the window. The yard was quiet. Moonlight silvered the grass. A breeze nudged the wind chime Aaron had hung years earlier. The soft sound hummed in the dark. He always picked the most ordinary things to remind me that joy doesn't have to be loud. In that moment, I knew what this chapter was really about. Not loss, not revenge, not even justice, but return to myself. To the home I kept. To the life I refused to hand over, even when it seemed easier to disappear. They say women my age fade out, grow invisible, become background to younger, shinier stories. But I didn't vanish, I stayed, I fought. And I bloomed again. Quietly, yes, but fully. When a woman reclaims her voice, the world doesn't always listen at first. But eventually, the silence she endured becomes the story others learn from. I didn't think I'd feel this whole again, not after everything that happened, but healing has this odd rhythm. It doesn't sweep in like a storm. It builds, quietly, with small moments that begin to stack like bricks. One soft triumph on top of another. Some days I just sat outside and listened to the wind move through the trees. Some afternoons I played my old vinyl records. Made a pot of soup. It's been read for hours by the bright kitchen window. There was nothing glamorous about it, but it felt like freedom. Eventually, I started volunteering at the local library. At first, just shelving books. I liked the quiet, the type of silence that didn't hurt anymore. It's a kind filled with the rustle of pages and the hushed excitement of someone discovering a story that moved them. It didn't take long before they asked me to lead the senior book group, mostly women, my age, who wanted more than just Jane Austen reruns. So I said yes, And on my first day in that circle, surrounded by women with silver hair and tired but radiant eyes, I told them what I'd learned. You're never too old to be tested and never too forgotten to survive it. They smiled, not the polite kind, but the smile of women who understand what it means to bury parts of themselves so the world wouldn't call them difficult. One woman, Diane, stayed behind after that first meeting and whispered, "You've been through something, haven't you?" I nodded. She placed her hand on mine. "You shine soft, but you shine strong." That's what we need more of. That night, something small inside me settled, and the next week started writing. Not to make sense of the past, but to give it meaning. I wrote about Aaron not as a martyr or a perfect son, but as a complicated, kind-hearted man who faltered, like the rest of us, who tried, who left a piece of his soul behind in the corners of this house. I wrote about Madison, too, without bitterness, just truth. About how power can warp grief when it's wielded from insecurity. About how pretending to be strong is a different thing than being steady. And mostly, I wrote about myself, not the woman erased from her own home, but the one who put her name back on the stories others tried to rewrite. Soon I had pages. Then, chapters. I didn't call it a memoir. I called it a memory anchor. I kept it beside my bed, even after I stopped writing. Life didn't become perfect after that. Some days the grief still curled like smoke around unexpected corners. Some nights I woke with the aches of it, but the difference now? I didn't run from it. I greeted it, sat with it, and then returned to the present stronger than before. 1. Saturday morning, I took a drive upstate, visited a hiking trail Aaron had always talked about but never quite made the time for. He was always going to next weekend it. I hiked the first mile alone, the air crisp, the sky stubbornly blue. With each step, I whispered to the trees the things I couldn't say during the funeral, the things Madison had suffocated. "Thank you for making space for me," I whispered at the overlook. I placed a small paper crane, a symbol of peace, love, and endurance, on the edge of the rock anchored with a smooth stone I'd brought from my garden. "I'm okay now," I said aloud, and I meant it. Not okay like completed, not like nothing hurt anymore, but okay in the way where life no longer felt like a battlefield, where I no longer felt like a shadow in my own skin. A few weeks later, I received a package. No return address. Inside, simple leather notebook. On the first page, in Aaron's handwriting, "You still have more story to tell." I didn't know who sent it. Maybe it had been mailed months before and delayed. Or maybe someone from the legal office had passed it along. Didn't matter. It found me, and it sparked something I thought had been lost for good. I joined a writing group at the local community center. 5 women, all over 60. Some writing poetry, some letters to their grandkids, some just journaling to remember who they still were beyond the years. Together, we wrote about strengths, the quiet kind that doesn't make headlines, the kind passed down in recipes, in lullabies, in the way a woman packs up her grief and keeps showing up anyway. One night, as we sat sipping tea after a reading, one of the women turned to me and said, "You know, you don't write like a widow." "How do I write?" I asked. "You write like a woman who took her life back." I held those words gently, like something precious I didn't realize I was still building toward. Because that was it, wasn't it? Madison thought I was weak because I hesitated, because I didn't fight with fists or threats. But the truth is, I fought with presence, with dignity, with patience, and I won. Not just legally, I won in spirit. I never left my home, and more importantly, I never left myself. If Ellen's journey spoke to something in you, don't let it fade when the video ends. Share it, comment, subscribe. Let this be the reminder that resilience doesn't retire at 60. It's just getting started. There are stories inside, few that still deserve to be told. Never let anyone make you feel like you're too late to live the most important chapter of your life.